Okay, I imagine that we are live. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Gaytriarchy for the 27th of April. If we really are live, yeah, we are. Because hi, I know it's the 27th of April because I am seeing Avengers Endgame tonight, and I'm very prepared to be disappointed. I'm very prepared that maybe this is, not going to be the best thing in the world. But I was obsessed with Infinity War. I watched it many a time, and so I really don't care if it's not going to be the best thing ever because hey,
Infinity War was not that great.
oh, shut up.
No. All the scenes with Gamora and Thanos, they were amazing. Doctor Strange was pretty cool and Spider-Man was cool, but the Guardians sucked in this movie. I thought that it was a mishmash of mediocre scenes and pretty good scenes, but I'm looking forward to Endgame.
Real
Yeah.
quick here, we're getting an echo, I think. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's.
Oh, yeah. Logan, could you either put on headphones or mute yourself while you aren't talking? Because I think it's probably coming from you.
Or even just muting the YouTube link.
Yeah, if the playback link is going on, that would be.
What's the best way? How do I mute myself?
Well, if you go to the Google Hangout thing, there is a and you go to the top bar, there's a microphone right next to the video thing, and just click on that when you're not talking. So okay, cool. And
you're also gonna want to mute the YouTube chat too, just because then when you unmute yourself, it'll be playing back. So you'll also want to go to the YouTube chat and then make sure you've muted like the actual YouTube video.
But I'm not hearing any echo now that he's deleted.
I'm still hearing it. I don't know. Am I a crazy person?
I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. I had it playing in mine.
It was you.
It was just in my ears, and that's why I thought it was. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So, but before we talk about this movie stuff too much, because ultimately I have a lot to say about Infinity War, and I've really talked about it a whole bunch on air. Like Spaceman can testify.
I heard that Snape kills Dumbledore in it. That was the big spoiler I kept seeing.
Yeah, welcome to Gaytriarchy, the only place where gay and formerly gay guys, in this case, tend to talk about things that are interesting to me, at least, in a coherent...
I have to correct you.
What's up?
I'm still gay when I have sex with guys.
That's what you said last time, kind of.
It's complicated. It's complicated.
It's not gay if you don't kiss.
I do kiss.
Oh, well, that's pretty faggy then. Yeah, that's pretty gay.
Oh no, I'm gonna be demonetized.
Oh no, sorry. Man, screw you.
How dare you? How absolutely dare you? How dare you, sir?
You know what though? I think being gay, it's kind of like smoking. Like when I was smoking cigarettes, people would be like, "Are you a smoker?" And it's like, "No, I'm not a smoker. I'm smoking a cigarette right now." And it's the same thing with being gay. It's like, I'm not gay. I'm smoking a dick right now.
So, yeah, I have to say, I sort of included this in a video. I don't really go out to gay functions anymore. I find them generally just... Well, okay, I have to say I'm a little bit terrified because I don't want people to ever start talking about politics, because if some wasted homo starts blathering on and on about Russian collusion and how there's a cover up and blah, 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 blah. And I don't know, Kamala Harris is going to get to the bottom of it. I'm sure I might actually freak out and just start ranting and everything. I think people that I know, because I did go out last night, and people that I know always have this sort of reverse scenario going on in their head where they're like, oh yeah, because people will hate you. And I'm like, nobody's going to know my opinion until I make it clear that I hate them. Like it's I think you're getting the cause and effect wrong in the order, because I distance myself from gay culture because I generally hate all of the guys. And people, I guess people have a hard time understanding that because it's just like, well, you know, maybe they would hate me, but they would be the ones who would start talking about politics first, thinking that everybody agrees with them, and then I would be like, I hate you too, I hate you too, I'm leaving. So that would be what would actually happen. And so last night I went out, and I don't want to say anything bad about anybody, because I actually think that all of the guys that I was hanging out with are probably relatively good people, but there was like 2 birthdays going on and some friends sort of in from out of town. So everybody was really, really, really drunk. And then by the time they even met up with me, so I was just kind of like, oh, hey, I'm on my first drink and I don't really drink that much. How's it going? And I'm all like soft spoken and everything. Like, I felt like the like normal, because I used to be loud and sloppy and I was just so not that. And I think my friend, you know, that I really know, he kind of remembered that version of me and was like, what's going on? And then, you know, there was talk about doing drugs, and it got really like, I guess the thing to say, and this is the honest truth, because I used to do drugs. I don't do drugs now, and I haven't for years. And it reminded me of a state that I used to sometimes get in, where some people were really, really wanting drugs, and it seemed like the only thing that was going to make certain people happy would be getting them, to the point where they just stopped everything to try to get them from people, and they were being very unpleasant. And then the people who had them or whatever were just kind of like, do we want to do drugs with these guys? I don't know, maybe. And then they were like, yeah, give it to me. And then they're like, okay, I think we don't, because they're being annoying. And to see the hopes and the dreams of the evening for some people being kind of crushed, and then they were just like, oh, I'm wasted. Let's just go home and go to sleep. It was just like, it kind of triggered what it was like for me to sometimes be like that, and it felt a very disgusting feeling of remembering being in that place myself. And it felt like it was, I mean, maybe it was just a particular night, because there was not that many people there, which is another sad thing. This was a gay bar that, Friday night gay bar, no more than 20 people in the whole place. And so that by itself is a little bit depressing. And it just reminded me that I feel like the gay scene for the last number of years has gotten progressively worse. And the reason, my understanding, my feeling, my guess, and this is not just a wild guess, this is through a lot of personal experiences, is that gay men have become increasingly more miserable as they're not allowed to really be themselves, and they have to just sort of do drugs to make themselves happy, because they can't talk about what they would really want to talk about otherwise, or, really do anything interesting because of the far leftist and feminist tyranny over their culture. They're expected to be all these certain things that I don't think most gay guys really are deep down. And so instead of even talking about those things and trying to change them, they just end up using drugs. And I was like that years ago for a little while before I stopped using drugs, and then became very outspoken. And I really attribute that to other people. And so I think it's going to be interesting today to be talking to both Philip, aka Logan, and Chadwick and Spacepan about the fact that Philip used to be an adult film star called Logan McCree. And he ended up basically leaving the gay scene. And he's not entirely not gay, but he has a female partner. And when he did that, gay guys were furious for some reason that ultimately really boggles my mind. Like, unless I don't know, maybe we should really start by explaining the story and trying to figure out, to the best of your knowledge, what they were actually furious about, because I have never actually really specifically talked to Logan, aka Philip. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna call you Philip because that's what it says on the but I've never really talked to you about this story, because when I had you on before in the kind of like prehistory section of this stream, before it was on my channel, we I was really just more focused on getting to know you, and feeling like if I got along with you, and if we saw eye to eye on things. So we mainly just talked about men's rights stuff, and I really enjoyed talking to you, but I didn't feel like prying into your whole story that's made you kind of I guess infamous to the gay community or whatever, and I felt like it sounded really unfair, but I know very little about it. So I want to spend the first period of this live stream just talking about that.
I'm so, I just had to say, I'm so, when Prince, when he told me about Philip's story this afternoon and asked me to come on, I'm so fascinated to hear this. So I'm very much looking forward to this, Philip.
Okay, so I'll try to keep it contained and fast. First of all, so okay, it will still be quite a lot to cover. I always knew that I liked men. So ever since I was a kid, I knew I liked men. And when I was like 17, 18, I had some experiences with girls that felt okay, but it wasn't amazing. And then I had an experience with a guy, and that actually felt pretty horrible. But I could still tell that it was what I wanted. And then I would say till the age of 27, I struggled. I knew that I was interested in men, but I struggled with the sexuality. I really wasn't into sex very much. And I actually, between the age of 18 and 20 something, I really didn't want to call myself gay, but I felt because I didn't feel like I belonged to that subsection of society. I was just myself, but I felt pressured by society into putting that label on myself, which I'm a little upset about from my point of view now. I would have preferred if people would have just said, or if somebody would have just told me, look, you can choose whoever you want to love at any given point of your life. That would have been much, much better for me than that label of being gay. And I came from the industrial music and punk scene a little bit, so listening to Nine Inch Nails, Marilyn Manson, and stuff like that. So that's
well. Color me surprised.
And so I would say that my affiliation was much more with the alternative music scene than with the gay scene. And when I started going out in the gay scene, I didn't fit, and I didn't feel comfortable at all in the normal gay scene. And very quickly, I started going into the leather and fetish community. And as I said, I didn't have sex at that time, but I found the scene much more interesting. People were older, more mature, and I would literally sit in like bars that had dark rooms. I would be sitting at the bar talking to older guys about religion, spirituality, politics, and stuff like that. And I was more fascinated by the sexuality that these guys had than actually joining in. And then at the age of 27, I finally felt comfortable with sexuality, which I'm quite a spiritual person, and it was a bit of a sexual spiritual awakening where something inside me really told me, oh, now I'm ready to enjoy sexuality. I'm mature enough. And then I had quite a lot of experiences, and they were fine. And I was making money. I was in the army for 3 years, and while I was in the army for 3 years, I made quite a bit of money. And then after I left the army, I worked as an alternative rock DJ, and you don't make any money with that. But you spend a lot of money when you buy CDs, which I did a lot. So I ran out of money, and at one point I had to decide, had to make money, and I knew some porn actors, and I asked them about their experiences, and they said their experiences were very, very positive, very nice. And I was never a huge fan of gay porn because it felt very superficial, too sex focused and not focused on the chemistry between the actors and real intimacy. And I thought maybe I can bring something positive to the table. And then I applied for the job with the porn company Raging Stallion, and they invited me over to America. I shot my first scene. After I shot my first scene, I the boss wanted to talk to me, and he said, "Look, we would like to work with you, and we would like you to be an exclusive for our company." And he was incredibly honest from the get-go. He said, "Look, if you're an exclusive, that means you make less money, but we will take care of you, and we'll make sure that your experience is positive." And in that conversation, I also said, I'm very sorry compared to your other actors. I'm not as muscular. I'm more like a sporty, lean guy." And he said, and I said, "I would like to change that and bulk up a little bit." And he said, "If you want to do that, that's fine, but you don't have to. And whatever you do, don't take steroids, don't take drugs. Make sure you stay healthy." And the whole approach of the company or the boss of the company was incredibly like caring and loving. And I have to say that was my predominant experience in the porn business, especially working with Raging Stallion. That's why I stayed in the business for 3 years, working almost exclusively with them. And during that time, I was still I was completely exclusively having sex with men during that period, and I had some short-term relationship with guys. One of them was a colleague of mine, a porn actor, but I always felt that I could not have long-term relationships with men because to me, again, it's a spiritual thing. To me, a relationship should be a coming together of two different parts. And to me, being with man always was a reflection of myself. It was not a different aspect of life. It was more of the same, which I enjoy, and I do enjoy the camaraderie. But I'm predominantly interested in straight men, unfortunately. So I can't actually have a relationship with them, and I wouldn't want to be honest. All I would want to have. Yeah.
I have to ask. Did you get set up to work with a number of straight men? Because I feel like last time we talked, you said that there weren't actually really that many straight men that were in the adult film.
No, not at all. I worked with some straight men in Eastern Europe, in Hungary, actually. I was rented out to this Eastern European company, so I got the permission to work for them, and I worked with a couple of straight guys, and some of them were very professional and was okay to work with. But overall, it was a predominantly negative experience, I would say, not because of the straight actors, but because of the company. They did not care about the actors at all, unlike the company in America, Raging Stallion.
Huh. Okay, I feel like that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, things I was thinking, when you were going through that is, well, yeah, they don't need you to buffen up a whole bunch because look at your tattoos. You're already,
exactly. That's the big sound. Tattoo.
Yeah. And also, I just want to say really briefly, now that we have a few people watching, please hit the like button if you are interested in this conversation, because it will help us in the algorithms get some more views. And also, you can always donate money to me, especially on PayPal is what I would appreciate. So mrprinceofqueens@gmail.com with periods between all of those words. So yeah, I guess the last thing I was going to bring up about what you just said is that I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I've known some of the Raging Stallion people because I lived in San Francisco for a long while. And
Yeah.
not only are owners of that company or people who were at the time gay men themselves, but they were also actors.
Yes, yes, exactly. I think all of them, with one exception. So two of the owners or guys running the studio, they were actors before, and one of them had some severe drug problems, especially during the time when I joined the company, and so I think I joined at a pretty bad time where they actually didn't know where the other guy was, and I could really feel the deep concern of the other people in the company, and so they were not huge fans of drug use and drug use, and they, yeah, as I said, they were very caring, and they really wanted to make sure that I stay, let's say, as innocent as I was, and I was, as a person, very innocent. I've never taken drugs in my whole life. I've never smoked. I didn't drink alcohol. At the moment, I drink very, very little alcohol. So I was very atypical for a porn actor. But I have to say, I lived in Germany in a little garden house in the middle of nowhere, next to the forest, with my dog. So my life in Germany was very, very far away from the porn life in San Francisco. I wanted to finish to how I started dating women again. So even though I had sexuality with men, and even though I did enjoy some of the sexuality with men, I did feel that this can't be all. It didn't feel very satisfying to me for the most part, with some exceptions. And most of my friends are straight, and I had a very good friend who was very straight, and we were talking about sex quite a bit, but we were predominantly talking about, or almost exclusively talking about, his sex life, straight sex life. And I felt almost left out because I couldn't join the conversation, even though I had had sex when I was 18, but I didn't have fresh experiences. And after a while, I thought to myself, I really should try it again. It can't be worse than gay sex. So, but it's actually quite difficult to have straight sex again if you have had a gay lifestyle for so long. Obviously, sex with men is very accessible and very easy to come by, but sex with women, it's quite difficult. You have to go to a pub and you have to buy them drinks, and I'm shit at flirting. I really can't flirt. And I'm a very honest person, so what should I have said? Should I have said, "Hey, I'm gay, but I want to have sex with a girl just to see if it works for me"?
I think you could have actually gotten away with that.
Yeah, but it's just not my style. And to be honest, the kind of women that would have been okay with that probably wouldn't have been women that I would have liked to have sex with. And I was terrified. I was just terrified that I wouldn't be able to get a hard on, and being embarrassed. That's something completely different, of having sex with women than having sex with men. When I have sex with men, I'm not bothered at all, and I don't feel like I have to be good. I'm just like, if I don't get hard, I don't care, because the other guy, he's a man, he knows what it's like. But with women, there's a lot more emotional pressure on you, I would say. So what I did after a couple of months of not being um, able to have sex with girls, I just went to a brothel. And it was a pretty stupid situation. She couldn't speak German very well. She was absolutely,
Where
she
was
was
this?
gorgeous.
Where was this?
In Germany. In
Oh,
Germany,
okay.
it's legal in Germany. And
Okay.
it was a girl. She was gorgeous, but she couldn't speak a lot of German, and the whole situation didn't feel very comfortable. So I gave her a massage for 20 minutes. Then she gave me a massage, and then it was very awkward. I couldn't get hard. I had to close my eyes, get an erection, by closing my eyes, put a condom over. But then the penetration itself was everything I missed in having sex with men for some reason, and it felt really, really good. And shortly after that, I actually coincidentally met my first girlfriend, who was a makeup artist at a photo shooting set that I was working on, and so we started a relationship. And to me, it wasn't a big deal, because to me, sexuality is fluent and is something that evolves over a lifetime. So in an interview with a gay magazine, I said, oh yeah, I'm dating this girl at the moment, and I still like guys, and I still have sex with guys. And to me, it wasn't an issue. Apparently, for somebody else or a lot of other people, it was. And on Twitter, I did get quite a few, well, threats, and people wished that they wished I would die, and that I was betraying the LGBTQ community, and that, yeah, it was quite nasty. I did get support from the gay community as well, or from gay people as well, saying, good on you, whatever floats your boat. Some people said, sorry, now I can't jerk off to you anymore because I know that you have sex with girls as well. And then
what a ridiculously, bizarrely petty thing to say. Like, that's so simultaneously.
It's so heterophobic. It's so heterophobic.
Well, it's also just weird. Like, it's like, imagine being that guy, being like, oh, this guy's so hot. Oh, this guy's so hot. Oh, how dare he? How absolutely dare he? I'm gonna put my dick away.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. I can't really understand it, but I mean
for me, it's like a straight guy.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I can't force gay guys to find it hot or even acceptable for me to have sex with girls. So I'm okay with them saying, sorry, but now you don't turn me on anymore. I think it's weird, but it's fine. But yeah, obviously saying like death threats or saying I should die, I'm like, really? Is that appropriate? That's weird.
Yeah. For me, a straight guy who's a 6 is hotter than a gay guy who's a 9. That's just my opinion.
Before we move on, I have to acknowledge this very nice super chat, which is from Reg Show Fan, and they gave me $19.99. Said, "Hey Prince, here's some cash. I hope it helps. Thank you very much. It will. Unfortunately, won't help me until the 21st of May, and so that's why I'm hoping people send stuff to my PayPal, which I will put the email address for my PayPal once again. But they say also, Logan, are you dating women because of personal decisions, or are you still into dudes? Not sure I understand. It's cool either way. I think that you're kind of explaining those questions as we go.
I can understand. I can explain it real quick. So from a spiritual point of view, I can only see myself in a relationship with a woman because when I really feel like in the yin and yang, where two sides that are opposites are complementary to each other, and that's how I feel in a relationship with a woman. And I actually become more the man that I like to be when I'm with a woman, and usually the woman becomes more the woman she wants to be as well. So we take different positions and fill the gaps for each other, so to speak. I still find men very attractive, and I love penis. It's always been like that, and I think that it will always stay like that. I hope so, actually. But I would say that my sexuality changed. I'm really not interested in one-night stands or just quick shags. I prefer deep connections with people that I would call friends. So kind of like fuck buddies, but on a friendship basis.
Philip, I was wondering, so it was this interview with a German gay magazine that you sort of, I guess, came out as being in a relationship with a girl, and was it that interview and that then everyone turned on you, or did you then like go?
No, it was actually if I remember the timeline right. It was actually an interview that a friend of mine did with me. Her name is Sue, and she is on Twitter under Fairview Sue. So at Fairview Sue, Sue, and she did an interview with me, and it was a lovely interview, very friendly, and I was very open because I don't lie. Understood the reason for lies, and after this interview, people started turning on me, and then there were a couple more interviews, and journalists asked me about it, and again, I never saw a reason to lie about it.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick that the fact that you are simultaneously, you're this tattooed guy and everything, but you also seem so incredibly genuine, and that comes through with your character very, very easily. Like you look at you and you're also like, but that guy doesn't have a bad bone in his body. So that's like that duality of like kind of looking like a bad boy but then having this very, very innocent thing going on is a really great thing about you, I would say.
I'm curious if you so once you started getting the backlash, were you surprised by the hatred of the gay community? And I ask that because I can imagine beforehand you probably had legions of fans who would be sending you nice messages and maybe lewd messages and what have you. And I think this is something at least I can relate to because I used to be big in the gay community because I worked for gay magazines and I got a lot of love and respect. And then the minute that I came out as a Trump supporter, then it was like it sounded very much like you went to. It was the death threats. It was everything on Twitter. Like these people, I couldn't believe the amount of. I'm not shocked anymore, but at the time, I was shocked by this level of hatred that I'd never known them to have. I'm wondering if you had similar thoughts.
I would assume that probably the hatred towards you, and I don't know how bad it was potentially worse than towards me. I would say that there were still a lot of people from the gay community that supported me and said, "Well, good on you." And I think I did have a reputation, at least amongst fans that were really interested in me as a person. I think quite a lot of them knew that I was kind of a spiritual person, and I think a lot of them liked me for my character as well. And I think most of them still supported me, but the ones that were only interested in sex and the porn part of my persona, quite a few of them turned on me. I think that coming out as coming out politically as conservative is potentially even worse in the gay community. I think if I'll go deeper into that later if you guys are interested. I'm starting.
Absolutely, yeah. I definitely want to get into your experiences as being an MRA and that stuff later because I feel like that's a whole separate issue.
Yeah.
I did have a couple of thoughts on what you've brought up so far. That have to because a lot of people in the chat are saying like, "Wow, it's so ridiculous that there was this backlash to saying that you were also with women." But I actually think it makes a lot of sense because if you think about it, like a lot of people who are gay or whatever, they they don't have the sort of support like from their family, and that's kind of how they get sucked into this SJW culture. Is that kind of becomes the only place where you find any sort of acceptance. And then you have also this whole narrative that's very, very like anti-conversion therapy because there's certain aspects of it that are like involuntary that people don't like. But I think that because they make it their identity, this concept of somebody like switching or like switching out of like being gay, it's sort of a threat to their own identity because it makes them wonder, could I maybe be bisexual or could my sexuality change? And I think that what's happened in the gay community is we've created this really, really rigid, like everything has to be in the lines and make perfect sense. Whereas like human sexuality, like it is kind of fluid. Like we're biological creatures. Like it's all, it's not totally in the lines. It's kind of, we're kind of like sloppy messes, yeah, like so it makes sense. But then the other part of it too is the spiritual aspect of like man and woman. I think that a lot of gay couples try to replicate that in like this severe binary between like top and bottom. They're trying to recreate that kind of performance role also. So I think that a lot of it is created as kind of a basically, I think that that's all kind of what's in play, and that when you have someone who's a little bit more changing and fluid, that they see that as a challenge to their identity.
Well, and Philip's story is. I was just say that I'm glad that Spacepan brought up conversion therapy, because I was going to ask about that, which I don't think. I wonder what your opinions on it are, but I think that your story is so refreshing because it really hits at something that would drive the gay community and the left insane, and that it acknowledges the fact that men have been having sex with men ever since humans evolved, and the idea of gay is totally a creation of, I think, particularly American culture, but Western culture for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That it's how you have to be, and it's how it is what you are. It is your lifestyle. Most gay people think that bisexual people don't exist, or bisexual men at least. So I think that your story gets at something I think that is so, not to sound too grand, but so at the core of humanity and human sexuality, that you can admit that you enjoy this and you always will enjoy it, but you also realize that that there's something more out there. I could see how that story would really drive gay people insane, because a lot of gay people, especially by the time you get to in your 30s, kind of realize what an empty existence it can be, and how potentially two men can't have what a man and a woman have on that spiritual level.
Yeah, well, and I also just want to say real quick, it throws a very big wrench in the gear of the "born this way" narrative.
Exactly. Yeah. Or born this way and only this way.
Yeah, I have to address the conversion therapy and all that real quick. It's really tricky, because I do support science, and I would love to know where homosexuality comes from. And I do think that I would assume that it comes from a variety of places. I think that to a certain extent it might be genetically, like a disposition, but also nurture. And I think it would be really great to find out what influences us to become predominantly gay or straight or whatnot. But in our political climate, you can't really look at stuff like that, because people would immediately say, oh, if we find out where homosexuality comes from, then it could potentially be cured if we see it as a problem. I don't see homosexuality as a problem, but I think if somebody, if we know where it comes from, we can understand it much better. And to be honest, I think if somebody would find out, if you eat a lot of celeriac when you're a little kid, then the chances are that you become less gay. Then I would have potentially eaten a little bit more celeriac. Not because I'm not happy with who I am, just to I think it would have made certain things easier, and it has nothing to do with heteronormative behavior. I think I would have liked to be a bit more in the middle when I was when I was a teenager, so that I would have had more options.
Agreed. Yeah.
And when we look at a conversion therapy, I'm against conversion therapy for minors, but I'm in favor of possibilities to challenge your sexuality or to work with your sexuality when you're an adult. But I don't think that the conversion therapies that tell you that you can cure homosexuality are necessarily the right thing. As I said, I didn't want to get rid of my homosexual parts. I still embrace them. I just wanted to broaden my spectrum rather than getting rid of my spectrum. But And I don't want to compare homosexuality with pedophilia, but if we understand where certain preferences come from, then maybe we could help people healing pedophilia. Of course, that could also be used to, let's say, heal homosexuality, and that could be weaponized against gay people that don't want to be healed. I'm well aware that everything can be weaponized, but just because things can be weaponized doesn't mean that we shouldn't scientifically look at these things.
Yeah, I really very much agree, and I want to add, and I think it's a really great way of looking at it. I think it's very fair, and yeah, I want to add that because I think I told you this before when we talked last time, is that I really, really do think that my homosexuality came likely more from nurture than from my any sort of genetic predisposition, which I imagine was kind of there. But when I was very small, my parents divorced, or they split up twice by the time I was age 5. And so they were always fighting by the time I was even born. And the thing about my mother is that she was just so impossible. She was always badgering my dad. Nothing was ever good enough. And she was very man-hating. She was a feminist, and she didn't like the fact that I was male. She would, hide my action figures from me and put them in the basement. And then after 3 or 4 months, she would, get rid of them and give them to a thrift store. And then if I figured out, she'd be like, "Oh, but you didn't play with them anymore." And it was like,
Wow.
well, because you stole them from me, And so when I was very little, I realized that I didn't want to end up in a heterosexual relationship. And it was because also my father was very unpleasant. He drank too much, and he was the type of drinker that would like get drunk and he would like fart loudly, and my mom would be like offended by it, and he would just laugh because he was really I think he was really sick of her crap. And I think that
is that an alcoholic thing or just a man thing?
I think that he was doing it deliberately though, because he would laugh.
I do it deliberately. I fart with a girl.
Yeah, but he would laugh, and it was in front of the kids. It's like there'd be like a bunch of us in the room, and then he knew it was going to make her mad, and she thought it was very inappropriate, but he would do it anyway. So
sounds kind of hot.
Okay, let's not talk about that anymore. But
I think
other guys romanticizing my father's farting. Very weird. But no, so when I know that there used to be, before Born This Way became the dominant cultural narrative, there used to be a narrative that gay men are gay because their mothers were awful people. And actually in the movie Beaches, which is a very gay movie, if you think about it, it's had Bette Midler, and it's very sappy. There's a wonderful scene. I need to get that on my computer so I can just pull out this clip and use it for videos. But Bette Midler was working at a small jazz club in New York City where there'd be like 3 people there, and she'd be singing. And there's a scene where she goes up to the boss, and he's sitting at a bar just nursing a drink, total alcoholic. And she's like, how can I get a little bit of money to make me through the end of the month? And he's like, no. And then she's like, what is wrong with you? Don't you know that you're making me work like a slave? This is horrible. What is and she just freaks out. And then he hands her like a 50, and she's like, thanks, Hal. You're the best. If your mother wasn't such a bitch, we could have had something.
There was a time that the only gay bar in Dublin was named CC Bloom's, which is Bette Midler's character in Beaches.
It was in Scotland, yeah, and Margaret Cho talked about that.
Yeah,
I worked at the film distribution company for the notorious CHO, and that, yeah, and so yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it was a funny thing. So yeah, that stereotype was around, and stereotypes don't just come out of nowhere, and so I have to wonder if there's some element of feminists trying to whitewash the fact that maybe sometimes kids do kind of turned gay because they had really obnoxious mothers, and feminists obviously wouldn't want to have that be the case. They would actually prefer their sons to be gay, and say no, it's a good thing.
But also gay people don't want to be in the position thinking that there's something wrong with them, which I understand. If it, for example, if it would
hold on
come out.
Hey, could you hold on one second, because I got 2 super chats. One from Miles Kinslow. He says, "Best of luck, Prince. Check out Streamlabs also as an alternative to super chats." I have that, and you can super chat me at Prince of Queens live streams, I believe is my super chat name, but I almost never check it. So yeah, I apologize about that. And then Do and Aether gave me $1.99. Thank you very much. Okay, keep going.
I think that it's quite understandable that gay people feel comfortable with the narrative born that way, because then it's not your fault and there's nothing you can change about it, and there's nothing wrong with you. And because it's genetics and stuff like that. But if it's nurture, or if it's something that is, let's say, in our heads, then it could be challenged, and it could be portrayed like we're just broken straight guys. Nobody wants to be that. So I can completely understand that the narrative was more focused on, you're born this way, there's nothing wrong with you, even if you're not happy that way. It's just because of internalized homophobia and stuff like that. It's the narrative that feels the best for gay people, and it's the narrative that feels best for the parents as well.
There's an argument. Well, I think it makes evolution. I think gay people, in a sense, make evolutionary sense when we were hunter-gatherers, because they took care of abandoned children. They took care of orphan children. I did a big story on Two-Spirit people, which is actually a thing. A lot of people like to think it's made up, but the whole Native American, the term Two-Spirit's new, with the whole Native American multi-gender thing, which was basically just gay people in ancient Native American tribes. But they had all sorts of roles in their communities and whatnot. And one of them was actually, they would be basically like what's a polite way to say this? Receptacles for tribal leaders before who had to get their sexual needs met and couldn't. Their wives are around, or they're at war or whatever. But the whole nature nurture thing. I don't think there's. I think there's more argument for nurture than nature. But in the same way, I've never particularly cared, because it's just sort of, I think, well, I mean, whatever. I'm happy with who I am, and who cares? We're here, and there's something going on. But it's when people take it to this extreme and this sort of zealotry, and I guess the identity, what we were saying earlier, it's become such a place that's set in stone. It's like when a few years ago, when the president of Iran, Ahmadinejad, was speaking here in New York. I don't know if you guys remember this, and he said something about, like, we don't have gay people in Iran, and everybody laughed at him and mocked him. And what he was referring to is that he wasn't saying we don't have men who have sex with men. He's like, we don't have, the word gay means this culture of the lifestyle and the exclusiveness to having sex with the same gender and the rainbow flags. That's what he was referring to. He was saying it's an invention of the West, not necessarily men having sex with men.
I would say that in a lot of Arabic countries, the percentage of men that actually have or have had sexual interactions with men is much, much higher than in the Western society. But they're also married and have children.
I think you're right about that too. And even pedophilia obviously is much more rampant.
Oh, I didn't know that, but yeah.
Yeah, it's also legal to have sex with guys under the age of 18. I think the only thing that you're really, really not allowed to do is bottom. And if you bottom, you'll be stoned to death. But you can, like, top other people, and I guess they might have to suffer the consequences or something. I don't know.
Well, and everyone should watch that document just on this subject, the documentary, The Dancing Boys of Afghanistan. I mean, it's very disturbing because it's about this culture of pederasty in Afghanistan, but it explains a lot about that culture.
Very important distinction to distinguish that, as far as I know, pedophilia is having sex with prepubescent children. So
yeah, right.
So that's quite, so underage. There's a difference between underage and pedophilia. Pedophilia.
Well, yeah, pedophilia is prepubescent and pederasty is post-pubescent, but under the legal age of consent.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just it's all. I think it's sticking to certain clear definitions is sometimes quite important. I think so. That's why.
Oh, right, yeah.
So, okay, let's I want to go back to the hate thing. Was it really just from this one interview, or were there other publications printing stories about how you were this horrible traitor or anything more
Well, no. I have to say that most of the interviews, the interviews themselves or the publications they were a little bit gossipy, but they were not hateful. So I kind of have to defend most of the gay press in that instance.
Huh, that's cool.
Yeah, a lot of them, they like, especially when they actually had an interview with me, they were fair. And I would say that a lot of journalists, we had just pleasant conversations and they would portray it roughly in the way that I said it. It was more the people reacting to it, where the hate came from.
So when did it happen? How long ago was it that you went to the brothel with the woman, and how long did it take?
That was 9 years ago.
And 9 years. And how long did it take you? Do you presently really enjoy sex with your girlfriend and with women? And how long did it take you? If so, how long did it take you to get to that point where it felt more natural and you weren't so nervous? And
it's I have to say it. I cannot compare sex with a woman with sex with a man at all. It's I can have sex with any man, I would say, but it feels like playing ping pong or something. So it's
like playing what?
Ping pong, like table tennis.
Oh yeah. You kind of cut up a little bit from my end, so
yeah. So it can be intimate, but it doesn't have to be. Where with a woman, I really only enjoy sexuality if I feel a strong personal, intimate connection. So, for example, I do not turn around on the street staring at girls and looking, checking out girls. I don't do that because I need the personal connection. So with a girl, it's the personal connection and actually seeing a future with this girl and the aim to create something new.
I think
a partnership with children in the end, hopefully at one point.
I think any woman listening to you say that, their panties are on the floor right now. You're like the ideal straight guy. He doesn't look at women on the street. He wants a future. It's a beautiful answer.
But they have to deal with the fact that I do look after guys.
I think that's a problem a lot of the time.
Maybe a lot of women would be okay with that if
a lot of them are okay with it.
They are okay with it.
Yeah.
And do they sort of see it as not cheating? Do they sort of understand it's more of a, I guess, kind of more of a guy thing, just more of a primal, just getting off?
Yeah, and well, at the moment, there's this girl that I spend time with, and we have a very similar taste in guys, and we both have an obsession with bulges. So, oh my God, did you see this guy's bulge?
You know what, though? I think that, like you mentioned earlier, that you said that there are people who they say, "Oh, now you've been with a woman, like I can't watch your porn anymore." And I wonder if those are a lot of gay men who have like a really, really strong like female kind of mentality, because you also have among a lot of women that if a man is bisexual, like to them, there's like a one drop rule of dick with that, right? So I'm wondering if there's maybe a little bit of an overlap there. And I don't know. Obviously, I'm speaking in generalities, but my hypothesis would be that it has to do with women who have a very, very female sexuality when they're looking towards men, and then also gay men who have a very female kind of sexuality when they're very like bottomy and then looking towards men in that way.
I think it's more it's real misogyny and heterophobia. I think that a lot of gay people find women or the thought of naked women disgusting. And I don't know where this strong rejection comes from. I mean, obviously, you find the same thing amongst some straight guys that say, "Oh, I really don't want to think about any kind of gay sex," and you find the same thing on the gay spectrum as well.
Yeah.
So you think that with these gay men versus the women, there's like totally different things in play. Like there might not be any similarity there.
Pardon, say again?
So you think it's two separate things? Because I'm suggesting maybe there's an overlap there. But if it has to do with like the misogyny, that explains, you know, the gay revulsion, but then it wouldn't explain like women who aren't really.
I think there are a couple of things. I think there's misogyny, but I think there's also this feeling of betrayal and that I chip away on their self. So they identify as gay and they identified me as gay. And if I say, oh, actually, I like women as well, I think it's a betrayal of their fantasy of who I am. And I had this in some Twitter conversations recently, and there is apparently a real movement within the gay porn fan bubble that have strongly opposed gay for pay and any straight actors that also earn money with gay porn.
Blackface is what that is.
Well, no, wait. Okay, I feel like we're actually maybe getting to what I think the heart of the matter is right here, which is this. Well, and first, I want to clarify. You said something about misogyny and heterophobia in the same sentence. I want to clarify that I don't think at all, like this is something I'm very strongly opposed to, the idea that gay men are disinterested in women sexually or disinterested in heterosexual sex. I really don't like calling that misogyny. I just, that something I really don't want.
There are two different things. So misogyny to me is actually the dislike and hate towards women.
Yeah.
And I do think that there are gay people that, apart from their fag hag, and maybe even including their fag hag, they do dislike women.
There are, but I think it's a very, very, very minuscule fraction of gay guys.
Yes, I agree. But
wait, hold
on. I agree, but you have to understand that it was a very small fraction of people that sent me these really hateful messages. Okay. And I think that just like you have in every movement, and like you find real misogynists in the MGTOW and incel movement as well. And I do think that in the gay porn bubble, you actually have real haters.
Well, was there any indication of that from what they sent you?
Well, if people like women as like disgusting cunts, and like, so when they would actually speak really hateful about the sexuality of women and straight sexuality, I think there is an aspect of misogyny in there.
Huh? I don't know.
Maybe not of women as humans, but as of women as humans with a sexual as sexual beings.
I think
I really don't like. I just, me personally, like, we can move on and everything. I really do not like conflating sexuality with women and or even like women as sexual. I don't even think that guys think about it that much. I don't like conflating that to misogyny. I would really want something more tangible. I think that it's a bit more likely that, you know, like me, I told you this last time we talked, like, I get really, really uncomfortable about the idea of having sex with women. Like, I can sometimes get myself in a zone where it seems like more okay, but like I always say that if I had sex with a woman, I feel like it would feel like I was raping Tori Amos. Like, that's how.
Which is pretty hot. she would write an amazing song about it.
Well, I wouldn't like that. It deserves it. So I don't. I think that there's probably a lot of guys who maybe I think this is what I really wanted to say, because I was kind of just a preface to what I was going to say. I think that it's probably a lot more likely that gay guys were what you were just talking about, the gay for pay and straight guys in porn. Did you ever get any messages from gay guys saying, "Oh, you always seemed straight. You are a faker. You are an imposter."
Yeah.
See, I think that sort of betrayal, like thinking that they trusted you to be gay, because you are pretty straight acting, like you do look straight and you kind of seem straight. I feel like a lot of gay guys would they'd be like, "Oh my god, that guy's gay, that's so hot," and then when they find out that you're not, they feel like it was a betrayal.
I guess kind of like teenage girls, like teeny boppers, and like their boy bands when like one of them gets a girlfriend. I feel like it's a very similar dynamic.
Very much like that. I agree.
Prince,
I wanted to know. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chad.
Well, I was just going to say that Prince, what you described as feeling so uncomfortable, the idea of having sex with a woman, which I think that Derek and I could probably also relate to. That's kind of exactly what Philip addressed. He sort of said that, and I think I agree with him, that the longer you spend time having sex with men, the more that you get turned off by that. And it took him, it was very hard in that first experience. You couldn't get hard. It was so uncomfortable. I wonder if that's...
Well, for me, it was never like that with me. I was always repulsed by the idea of having sex with women. Like, not repulsed. I don't like saying repulsed. I always have felt as if it would make me feel very, very guilty in some weird way, like I was hurting them or something.
So you guys, I've had sex with women, but then when I had sex with men, I was, I just liked it better. But I wonder if Derek and Prince, if you've thought about it on the level that Philip is discussing. I mean, I've been thinking about this more, and I mean,
I have.
Well, any Daily Beast reporter who is listening to this is probably going to take this way out of context. But I've been I'm kind of returning to Christianity now, and I've been going to church, and I've been, not that I ever plan on
# me too.
Are you too? Good.
Yeah, I go to church every Sunday.
I've just started going back to church, and I've been actually Milo Yiannopoulos just mailed me a care package about 10 books about Christianity, which I'm excited to read. But
how is Milo doing?
He's doing good. I talk to him probably almost every day, and he's doing pretty good. He's working away,
Please say hi to him. He doesn't know me, but please say hi to him.
I'm gonna send him this and I'm gonna introduce you to. I'm gonna make him aware of you, because I'm sure he would really like your story. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I don't think I'll ever, I won't try to convert or try to marry a woman. But I get kind of sad thinking about it, because I think I'm in this place now where I'm like, yeah, I think maybe I would be happier. I think that life would be better. But in the same respect, I have the same revulsion. I just could never be with a woman. And I wonder if Derek or Prince, if you guys have had those thoughts as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm totally different from Prince, because I don't really feel a sense of revulsion toward anything like that, which I think is unusual. I think most people they have that sense of revulsion. If you're a man, typically a penis in your face is a non-neutral thing,
Yeah. No, I just want to say, wait, just because you mentioned me, I want to say that actually, I do think that my particular way of viewing it is unusual. I haven't met, I only know one other gay guy that feels similarly. Definitely. Most of the other gay guys I know are fairly indifferent, and some of them have even after being gay for a long time chose to have sex with a woman once and was like, well, I did it, it wasn't so great, so yeah, I do think that I'm unusual.
I just think of vagina, it's kind of like an armpit with extra steps. It's just I don't know, it looks kind of weird, but it's whatever, take it or leave it. But then when you think about the more hetero romantic aspect of it, when I was a lot younger, when I was maybe 13 or 12, I really wanted that and had kind of an image of that, and I tried to date girls, and later on I realized like what I was doing was actually pretty awful because I was kind of using them as a means to my end to sort of create this identity for myself. And it was because I was trying to be like a good Christian. And like that's one of the worst things I think I've done as a person. So for me, like,
I have to say that
good.
I have to say that I have to deal with that all the time, what you just said, because I always have to ask myself, so how much am I, because as I said, I don't look at girls in this like lusty way that I look at men, and I constantly have to ask myself, so how much am I into girls, and am I lying to myself, or do I just want a family and stuff and things like that? And so I constantly have to look at myself and see, is it honest? Is it not honest? And but I know it's honest. I know that I can really love a woman, and that it creates something very special for me. But it needs to be the right person, and it's very difficult to find the right person. And I think that I think that for almost every person out there, you can find the right person of the sex that you usually are not into, and the right situation to actually have an enjoyable experience with the gender or with the sex that you usually don't have sex with. Does that make sense? Did you follow?
Yeah, yeah. And if I was
that speaks to you too, that idea that people kind of use relationships as a way of kind of creating or making a certain identity for themselves, because that is defined by a relation to another person. So there's always that danger. And I guess that's why people say, relationships are all about communication, because you need to be honest about where your mental state is so that you can kind of navigate that together.
But I do think that every person who engages in a relationship, they do use this relationship to change their situation and also who they are in some ways, because you start to define yourself not only through yourself, but also through your partner and the relationship that you establish. I think we all do that. We just need to be very honest about it, to what degree we do that, and if we still stay ourselves or if we hide behind something.
Yeah, it's a give take relationship.
Absolutely, yeah.
I wanted to expand on it just a little bit, I guess from the kind of the non-sexual aspect, the more relational, functional aspect, because there's this ongoing conversation right now about complementarianism under traditionalism, and it's sort of opposed or in some ways compromising with egalitarianism, right? You have this idea of traditionalism where you have man and woman, and they sort of have these roles that to some degree are biologically imposed, but of course there's different degrees of overlap. And now that society's moved towards having equal rights of both of the genders, now we have this struggle where women have access to both the male and female gender roles, whereas men, to some degree, they have access to the female gender role, but not really, like not in a social sense so much, at least compared to the reciprocal that women have. But then also there's of course
we shouldn't have to. We shouldn't. I think it's quite all right if men stay predominantly men, as long as they are not being attacked for choosing to be more feminine.
Okay, well, I was just gonna say real quick, that men are increasingly, like, they're sort of allowed to take on the female gender role, but they aren't really allowed to take on the male gender role.
Exactly.
Which is kind of interesting, because there's a lot of whinging about why aren't men doing these kind of feminine roles, but the message is less about kind of positively enabling that and more so like men are being shamed out of the male gender role to kind of push them in that direction. But
well, the thing is, I would say that
because it's
I think that society very, very, very strongly tries to make men less capable and less dangerous. I think that is a real aim, making men softer, and because you could actually have a very strong manly version of man that integrates female aspect, like the nurturing aspects, and we've had that forever. And when you look at Arabic culture, like the fathers are incredibly loving when they interact with their children, for example. So being masculine and being open, like engaging with your children and stuff like that, and helping at home, that make you less masculine. But I do think that our society does not only want men to be more present in these typical female roles. I think society wants men to be less manly so that they are less dangerous, especially to women. But the problem is that a society with men that are not manly is a very vulnerable society.
Well, because strong men are not even just so they're not bad to women, strong men are strong, independent, masculine men are the biggest threat to the state. The biggest.
I was going to say easier to control.
Yeah, they're a bigger threat to the oncoming global fascist order because they provide. They don't need the government.
Exactly.
Well, and also they have the wherewithal to do various different things. So yeah, I guess it's basically what you're saying. Like if people around them are trying to force them into doing one thing, they can be like, I know how to do other things, so I'm going to move.
It's the same with urbanites versus rural people as urban cities grow. This is something I've been thinking about a lot lately, because urbanites are intrinsically useless people who, as soon as the zombie apocalypse comes, are going to be the first to go, like the bloggers.
And everybody assumes that in the apocalypse, so 90% of the people are zombies, and here's my plan. It's like, no, statistically, we're already 90% chance you're already a zombie in order for it to be an apocalypse.
Right. That's true. That's true. But if you think of your typical urbanite, your typical New Yorker, my neighbors, it's the systems analyst, the blogger, these people who if the New York City ran out of coffee tomorrow morning, they would completely lose their minds. If their water heater breaks, they have no idea what to do. They got to call the super. And then you look at rural people who vote conservative, and no big deal. They can fix it themselves. They can take care of this. They can defend themselves. They don't need massive bureaucratic systems to care for their every need.
Yeah, I'm in probably the absolute worst place for there to be an apocalypse. Fucking Hong Kong, because nothing is here. It's all import. It's all based on capitalism. It's all urban. We're completely zero to fuck.
You would be surprised how soon people would turn towards cannibalism.
Oh right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was that town in Walking Dead called? The cannibal town.
I never saw
I don't watch Walking Dead. I watch Vikings.
I watched Norsemen.
Ooh,
that show.
I haven't started watching that yet.
I binged the whole thing in a couple of days. It was.
I'm watching Game of Thrones. I'm stoked on this next episode. It's going to be good.
I just started watching
an episode behind.
I'm only on season 5. Don't ruin it. I'm only on season 5.
Okay, we won't.
I wanted to
bring. Can I open a new topic?
Yes.
If you don't mind, I wanted to bring up something that was brought up earlier. I hope it just won't take too long. But because you had brought up MGTOW, and with this idea of relationships and kind of the roles of men versus women. So I'm kind of a white knight for MGTOW. I don't necessarily identify as one, just because it's kind of weird for a gay person to identify as MGTOW. I feel like it is kind of a straight person's space in some ways. But a lot of them, I think, are really disappointed in women, and we're in a culture where you're not really allowed to criticize women without being called a misogynist. And I think that a lot of it, people, it gets really pent up. So then a lot of them maybe they blow their lid off of it. But I think there is a lot of kind of valid criticism there that women have access to this male gender role, and it's enabled by the state in so many ways and subsidized in so many ways. So then you have all these women who get these special scholarships for being a woman, and then they go into the medical field, and then a few years later they decide to F off and go have kids, and it's society is out all of this cost where they pushed men out of these fields where the men were going to stay, right? And then society is just kind of eating these costs. And what I'm wondering is I made a video called "A Man Up Woman," and basically the message is I want to see women kind of disprove this narrative that women can't cut it, that women can't be competitive in that way, or can't be self-sufficient, or can't be like that they can't be net tax payers and things like that. And a lot of people in the MGTOW would push back against me and say that what I'm saying is impossible, that women are not capable of it, and that if we continue down this road of egalitarianism, it's going to lead to a societal collapse, and all the men are going to get killed, and the women are going to get taken over into some patriarchal force that's going to invade, right? That's kind of the dystopian narrative. So I'm wondering, like, since you're with a woman, like, do you like what's your relationship like with her? Like, do you kind of want from her more of the traditional female things? I'm guessing there's kind of a balance there, you know. And I'm
exactly.
wondering,
I would say,
the male weight is she pulling?
have you guys watched A Quiet Place?
No. Oh, is that? Oh, never mind. I was thinking of Hush. Totally.
No, it's
like Bird Box, isn't it? I heard it's similar.
It's similar to Bird Box, but it's much better. So it's Emily Blunt and her husband. Her husband actually directed it, and they're both starring in the movie. And it's post-apocalyptic, and it's this couple. They live on a farm, and she is pregnant, and they have already 3 children together. And he is a hunter and gatherer, and the woman looks after the house and the farm and stuff like that. And the movie was actually a little bit attacked for being too traditional in the gender roles, but I think the movie is the perfect example for a fantastic relationship, because you would like watching the movie. There is not a single second where you would think that the woman is less capable or less important to the maintenance of their life. And I think, to me, that's the most beautiful depiction of a functioning relationship in a very, very long time. And I think this whole narrative that women were oppressed and that women were not allowed to work, it's like, sorry, but do you really want to tell me that women working on a farm when they were married and had children, that these women didn't work? They were working at least as hard as the man, and they did what they can do. And there are certain things they couldn't do physically because they are not as strong as the man, and because they got pregnant. So it was a sharing of responsibility. And I do think that society is healthier if women embrace the fact that there are certain things that they are more suited for, and that there are certain things men are more suited for. I know that MRAs, for example, really, like, one of our strong arguments is that, well, men do all the dirty jobs. Men are 95% of the work-related deaths. And I have to say that that will never change, because men are more suited for these jobs, and that's how it should be. I just want women to, excuse my language, shut the fuck up, complaining that they don't get into the top jobs and stuff like that. It's like, look, do the jobs that are suited for you. If you don't care about family, if you don't want children, and if you want to focus on your job and all of that, become a CEO by all means. Nothing should stand in your way. But women are suited for different jobs and different lifestyles, and usually women prefer to focus on family.
And by and large, when women are given more freedom in society, when they're left to their own devices, they choose on their own jobs that are more suited towards their skills. Like,
I know in the Scandinavian countries.
Yeah,
the Scandinavian paradox is what it's called.
Yeah, and it's
the what paradox?
You really nailed it.
The Scandinavian paradox.
Okay,
I think you nailed that. That it's so evil and ugly that what feminism has done to not acknowledge the complementary nature of the sexes, which is it's a beautiful thing. I mean, they are perfectly complementary to one another, and of course there's exceptions, but by and large that's the rule. And they hate the station that biology has given them.
Mm-hmm. That is very true, and I can understand it. I mean, nature is limiting to women.
Okay, wait, I have something to say.
Yes.
So this is writing off of what you guys were kind of saying for the last little bit, but I don't remember exactly what, so I'm just sort of going to say it. Women now, it's not just that they have all these freedoms, it's that they were given so many privileges, I guess due to things like the Scandinavian paradox probably at the beginning, that now we've raised like 2 or 3 generations of women who are completely spoiled, and they have no idea. They don't know how much better they have it than men. Like, they can't comprehend it. And one of the greatest examples that we just saw was that feminist coffee shop in Australia that, you know, was charging men 18% more due to, I guess that must be the Australian wage gap is more like 18% supposedly. And then it went out of business. And, you know, for obvious reasons, like it just probably wasn't a very good business. Like, anyone who's dumb enough to do that, I'm sure they're not running a very good business anyway. But of course,
the conquest of bread.
What?
There was like a communist bakery like in France called Conquest of Bread that tried to have like the Ben and Jerry's model that Ben and Jerry's also abandoned, which is why Ben and Jerry's is not out of business, unlike Conquest of Bread. But yeah, it's the same story. It's like a pattern. Is that these people who try to have these SJWist very, and it is essentially communism. The whole wage gap rhetoric.
Okay, wait. You're getting distracted from my point because I'm talking about women.
That's another example is all, but yeah.
Yeah, but I'm talking about women. This has to do very specifically with these females who are so incredibly entitled that they, spoiled, not even just entitled, but like completely spoiled because they have no idea how good they have it. Like, you know,
okay, but I have to.
I want to just finish this anecdote about the story. Okay, about this at the coffee shop. So it closed, and their only response is blaming it on masculinity so fragile from men on the internet. It's never even occurred to them to examine, you know, what type of things they did wrong. And that's what you're going to keep seeing more and more and more as feminists lose, because the only reason feminists won for the last, 40 years, at least 30 or so, over and over, and really especially this decade, the only reason that feminists started winning is because they forced it. Like, the people in power gave all these opportunities to completely mediocre writers. Lena Dunham got a show. She's not a real writer. Lindy West got a show now. She's going to have a show on Amazon, and it looks god awful. And when these things end up failing, all they can do is throw a fit and say, oh, it's misogyny. It's like, no, it was misandry that you got this, that you were able to get to the position that you're at to begin with. And it's going to be really, really hard for them to understand it. They might not ever understand it because they did live this life of blatant privilege to the point of being spoiled.
Yeah, when's the last time you saw a man throw a fit because his business went under? I'm just trying to think of something. Unless it was like,
yeah, especially to say it was the women.
Yeah,
I think first of all, I think it's innate to humanity to treat the problems of women preferential. We will always try to make women feel better, and women are much better at complaining than men. So I think that won't change. But the thing is, women aren't happier now. That's the funny thing. Since the 70s, the happiness rate of women is constantly declining, because with more freedom comes more choices and more pressure. And sometimes it's actually better if you're more confined to few choices, and if you can focus on smaller things. And I do think that for a lot of women, not all women, of course, but for a lot of women, it felt better to actually be allowed to focus on family and have a career, but not a career that puts so much pressure onto you.
Yeah, well, and I think that the really dangerous, kind of insidious thing about this is that when they are, privileging women, putting them in STEM fields, maybe giving them grants and stuff, like women get lots of grants. When I was in New York City trying to do theater there, it was like, oh, I was never going to get anything because I was not a woman or a racial minority, period. There was no grants for gay guys anymore. Like, I mean, maybe there were a few, but it wasn't the same. Like, if you were a woman, a female playwright, they were just beating down your door trying to produce your play. It was very clear. And this the pressure that you talk about, it's not just the pressure of these jobs. I think it's also this weird pressure that's coming from older feminist women who are saying, no, we need more female, engineers, we need more, and really trying very, very hard to convince these young girls and young women to go into those fields to fill the older feminists, magical fantasy that one day everything is going to be completely equal, except for women are going to be in charge or whatever they actually want. And then when women are sold on this just complete alternate vision of what is going to make them happy, and then they fail, they have no idea who to blame besides men, because it never occurred to them that the person that was convincing them to do this, or the whole system, which is ultimately headed by feminists, that they are the ones who did something wrong to them.
The beautiful irony of the whole thing, though, is I think all these Zoomer girls, I think they're gonna end up being like, you know what, feminism is really gay, and yeah, the MRAs have a point, and you know what? I like bacon and apple pies, and I like babies, and I want to have some babies while I'm young, because now that the internet's out here, I know that all these other women are not happy. Here's a white pill prediction. I think that we're going to see this trend of women being unhappy reverse when these Zoomer girls like really double down and really resist, that this destiny they've been, given.
What are the
feminists.
Zoomer girls?
Generation Z.
Gen Z, the Zoomers.
The kids who are just now entering college, I believe. Didn't they just turned 18? Like the
No,
oldest?
Yeah, they're like high schoolers, and
Okay.
maybe like the oldest ones are college, I think.
But they're, I mean, of course, because how else are they? They're already, skewing very conservative. How else do you rebel when your forebears are the millennials, who are just the most awful generation ever? The only way to rebel is to go more right and traditional.
Yeah, it's the new punk.
Absolutely.
It's marriage and apple pies, monogamy, slut shaming. That's the new punk rock. It's great.
Shall I give you a little bit of hope? So yesterday, a guy came into my shop. I've got this art gallery, and he looked punkish. So he had a mohawk and was wearing military pants and stuff like that. And he seemed like a really nice guy, and we were talking about my art, and we got on really well, and we talked about some of my stuff. And at one point I asked him if he was politically interested, and he was like, oh yeah, very much so. And I carefully addressed certain things, like social things that bugged me. And I guess do you guys know Sargon of Akkad?
Absolutely. Yeah, I just made a video endorsing him for MEP.
Oh, brilliant.
My God. We have to talk about Sargon more, but yeah.
So he's so hot. I really like him.
Spank me, stepdaddy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we know Philip's type.
Pardon?
I said, I guess we know Philip's type. Sargon's
bears. I really like bears. Yeah. So I talked to this guy, and he was an anarchist, and he was very much in favor of communism. But the interesting thing is, he was listening to Jordan Peterson. He was completely against SJWs. He was aware that communism can't really work. So he's like, I like the concept, but I know it can't work. And just like I, for example, I'm in favor of dictatorship, but I know it can't work because there can never be a benevolent dictator. And
wait, are you serious?
What?
You're actually in favor of dictatorships?
Yes. Yes,
If
but
there's a benevolent dictator,
But
sure.
the thing is, I would be in favor of an incredibly wise, benevolent dictator, because democracy is incredibly slow, and certain things um, can't be decided by democracy because it's too slow. But
Okay.
I'm well aware that there can never be such a thing as a benevolent dictator, because you need to be ruthless and you need to lack morals to actually become a dictator. So it's just a thought experiment where I'm like, I think a dictatorship is the best functioning form of state, but I'm not in favor of it because it can never work.
Huh.
Bam. I'm German. Of course, I'm in favor of dictatorships.
I don't know. I gotta say, I'm kind of dumbfounded by that, and I also feel like that would go into a really, really long discussion of things that I don't feel like are particularly related to most of what we're going to be talking about. So I want to say that I've never considered being in favor of dictatorship personally, and we can leave these opinions completely separately, just because I don't want to talk about it.
I completely agree, but I have to say that like politics in America is very different from politics in Europe. Like it's very, very different.
Yeah, I'm pretty well educated on this.
Yeah. The dictator is a pretty familiar concept to Europeans, but not to us.
Yeah.
Our dictators
Okay.
are more subtle.
Oh, I wanted to ask you guys something. So how aware are you of Jack Donovan?
I know the name, but I forget who he is.
Nobody else? Nobody
No, I know him. I know.
I've heard
tell
the
me,
name.
tell me who he is. Tell me who he is. I'll probably remember.
Okay, so Jack Donovan, he wrote a book called The Way of Man. It's I would say, the definitive book on masculinity. It's really well written, and it's sometimes quite hard because he doesn't use any morals in the book. So it's really not about what it means to be good. It's really just what it means to be a man. And he doesn't hold back. And he's a very interesting case because he, in some ways, similar to me. So he's gay, or he was gay. I don't know how he identifies right now, but he also has experiences with women at the moment, as far as I'm aware of. But he's really, really into tribalism and stuff like that. He's a very interesting character. But I find it quite interesting that so many gay men are interested in defining masculinity, and that there are so many gay MRAs and like gig tabs and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on that?
There are a lot of them. I mean, there's a good number of gay Proud Boys as well, who I think maybe have in common a sort of similar just appreciation of masculinity. Not there to hook up or anything, obviously, but a similar just appreciation.
Come on.
Well, yeah, they do like to drink a lot, but makes it easier. But yeah, I guess a similar appreciation of masculinity and seeing how it's under attack, and just you can like having sex with men and then also just still love men and appreciate men on a different level than sexual.
Mm-hmm.
I wish
you guys do you guys feel slightly insecure about your own masculinity?
No, I'm completely comfortable with my masculinity. I have this very weird mixture of being very, very masculine in the ways that I value as an individual, but also being kind of feminine at the same time, and being totally okay with the duality and the fluidity of those things. And it's something that people have always actually enjoyed about me. Ever since I was younger, people were like, yeah, you do have this weird mix of masculine energy with slightly feminine mannerisms, slightly feminine interests, but mostly masculine interests. It's kind of cool about you. And I'm like, thanks, because it's very honest, and I maybe you're just reading my honesty, and
Okay.
yeah, that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, I agree. I have no I have no sort of conflicting relationship with my masculinity. I'm very secure in it. It proves itself in different ways. It's sort of like it's like when I look at where it matters, like when I look at how I am in a crisis, I'm really good in a crisis. If I look at how I am in an argument, if I look at how I am in any number of situations, it's sort of just very instinctually masculine,
Yeah. When I play video games, like when I play the team video games where it gets very, very serious, and often what happens is that one person ends up being a leader and sort of saying, okay, we have 6 characters. We need this character. We need this character. Can somebody make the switch? And then, trying to like coordinate all of the plays together. I'm more than often the person that takes charge and just starts ordering, kind of orders people around. But I'm really nice about it because I've done it a lot. And, one, I would say that there's definitely a lot of fairly homophobic gamers, like the people who, I mean, they're not usually going to like call you insults directly and everything, but they sometimes, like if things aren't going right, they'll flip out and start making like using slurs and that kind of thing. They'll be eager to blame the gay guy who's talking often, which never works out in their favor with me because I'm an on-air personality. I know how to fire back pretty easily, and I'm usually better than the guys who's doing that. So, but
Right.
one of the things I notice is that a lot of gay guys are very, very bashful when they play these video games, and they're shy and they're kind of nervous around the straight guys, and that just makes everything worse. And so when I start ordering the guys around, and then it turns out I'm good and we win, and then they really respect me, and then it's like this very, very smooth thing, and I think of it as a very positive interaction.
Well, even earlier when Spacepan had mentioned something, a comment about bottoming being, sort of feminine role bottoming. I wouldn't really even necessarily say that. I mean, it's a more submissive sexual position, obviously, but it's with even the way like men. I think we're talking about female sexuality. It is that sort of more emotional, spiritual connection. I mean, that's why female porn is all storyline, right? So like with like a gay man who's bottoming, he's still just as like filthy and depraved and horny as any other man. He's just taking it whatever. And so now that Grindr is, especially in New York City in my neighborhood, Grindr is it's basically an entire transgender dating app now. It's nothing but trannies and people who trace them. And I try to block them all the time. They keep popping up. It's like playing whack-a-mole. It's insane. But it's so funny to read these transgender people, like male to female transgender, their dating profiles, because it's nothing a woman would ever say. It's so filthy. It's so, I mean, half of them are tops. It's like these like totally filthy. I mean, they just sound like men, but they're like, but no, I'm a lady. I'm a woman. It's just like this thing, and it's such a cog in the whole transgender narrative. When it's the inconvenient truth of the transgender narrative that not all transgender people, because I know plenty who are more ladylike, but the vast majority of them, especially in big cities, are just just their sexual appetite is as depraved as men's. That's not how a woman's brain works,
Like dressed like a princess with these silky white gloves for fisting.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, on the topic of like security and masculinity, to me, the most important identifying characteristic of people to me are their ideas, because that's what makes humans so interesting. And what really struck me when I was in college is that they're all about diversity of every single kind of thing you can imagine in every dimension, except for intellectual diversity, right? Because that's the thing that needs to be the same in order for you to accept their diversity narrative. So that's the one that they can't let you have. But I honestly feel like if I went to sleep and like woke up as like, I don't know, like a proud Black lesbian, I'd be kind of like, okay, like I'll play this hand. Like, why not? Like, like it doesn't, to me, it's not that important. I think of my masculinity as like the same as my whiteness, or even the same as like homosexuality. It's just, it's a card I was dealt, and it is what it is. I didn't do anything to make it one way or another. You just kind of work with what you have. I think that with masculinity, though, it is interesting because it plays into kind of your ethical kind of performative role, which like there's a lot of value in that. But at the same time, I don't think that it's necessarily normative. Like I think that everybody should be interested in both masculinity and femininity, and should be kind of interested in getting what they can out of both sides of it as much as possible.
Well, I mentioned I mentioned Jack Donovan earlier, and in the book The Way of Man, he identified certain characteristics that are male characteristics, and I don't remember all of them, but some of them are strength, um, um, when you're really good, being perfect at something. How would you call that?
The expert,
Yeah, expertise. So
Like
there are a couple.
precision,
Yeah, well, it's more like expertise. I'm so sorry, Jack, if you hear that
mastery.
for fucking up your book. Well, he blocked me anyway, so it doesn't matter. He so
You get blocked by people who you respect too. We have that in common.
yeah.
Social
I think
media
I
is a
might
bitch.
I think I might have been a bit too attracted to him. But he figured out these certain things that are intrinsically or predominantly male, and he said the higher you are in this, like physical strength, this and this and this, the more masculine you are, and I can completely identify with that. And when I'm in a group of guys, I measure myself next to these guys, and I'm like, oh, I'm a little bit better at this, but this guy's better at this, and I don't feel it's not a bad feeling. I like the feeling of being challenged by other men, and that to me is a very, very strong part of masculinity. But I constantly feel like, ooh, I could be more masculine here and there. I not in a bad way, but I keep challenging myself as a man.
Yeah. I think that's a worthwhile thing to know. Wait, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, there's a weird thing.
I was going to say, I actually really, really appreciate friendly competition. And vigorous competition, you know, like if a friend of mine does something great, I'm always like, yes, awesome, you did that better than I could do it. And it's a great feeling for me. I'm a pretty competitive person, but not in a people associate competitiveness with this like bad thing, but I have a saying. I have a saying when I'm playing video games with guys is that, you know, cooperation brings friends together, competition keeps friends together. And you know, it's like when you get to the point, you're like, okay, you realize that you're friends with these people, and maybe you can work with them on a shared goal and everything. But it only ends up being fun when you're challenging each other to do better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just the way that men solve disputes versus how women do. I mean, even if just a simple fist fight can make everything go away between two men. You know, whereas if you scorn a woman, she will remember it until the day she dies. You know?
Yeah, gay guys too, very often.
I just yeah. Think about maybe more feminine gay men and more masculine gay men. There's some person who I won't name who is just a really atrocious human being who's kind of internet famous, a gay guy, and somebody pointed me to a podcast he was on recently, talking all sorts of shit about me over a 2-year-old tweet where I kind of called him out on something.
Oh God, still?
And I was just like, wow. And it struck me, I'm like, that's an extremely, I mean, he was seething with hatred, couldn't let it go, and very sort of smarmy about it. And I'm like, that's a really, really feminine way to behave.
Oh wait! I want to make sure. I want to make sure we're not overly conflating. Because I mean, in many cases, these guys are feminine, and it does seem very, very feminine. But I think that a very operative notion is the insecurity. Like,
and the well, I think I was just sort of maybe getting it more. You can be like even like a swishy gay, but masculinity lies more in how you react to things and how you treat the people around you than it does if you're taking it up the butt or if you're really effeminate or even if you're a drag queen or even a tranny. You know,
I agree.
I think it's about how you handle situations and how you handle the people around you and how you navigate the world is more and not necessarily how you speak or appear. It's more.
I mean, look at the situation in Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, where the transsexual walks over to this miner and kicks him in the balls,
right,
and tells him, "Now you're fucked." or no, I fucked you, or something like that. And that was an incredibly masculine way of dealing with the situation. It was just like, oh, you have an issue with me? Bam.
Right. That's a great movie.
That was a it's ma'am moment. If ever
Yeah,
there
it's
was
ma'am.
one.
Yeah.
That movie was so good. I need to rewatch that one.
It is a really good movie.
It's mad.
It's ma'am.
Okay, I noticed something in the last couple of weeks because I was over in Germany and I was in Munich and I was in Dresden, and I noticed a worrying, and I'm sorry that I have to use the word worrying, but a worrying increase in young lesbian couples, and it was so obvious. And first, I talked to friends about it, and they're like, "Really, I don't see any." And I started pointing them out, and then they started seeing them, and they're like, "They're everywhere." Have you noticed that? Is there a drastic increase in lesbians recently? And I'm not saying, obviously, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being lesbian, but it seems like there's a shift in society where a lot of women potentially choose to be lesbians, because as far as I know, women are more fluid to their sexuality.
Well, I think a lot of it would have
like to dress up. They like playing dress up, and I think it's just that it's becoming more normalized. It's more trendy. It's in, and like that's why we have the gold star lesbians, is because they hate this shit. They hate the fact that all these straight women are like, oh, I think I'm a little bit bi or whatever. Then they kind of step back out, right? Prince has what bi-straightuals.
Yeah, bi-straightuals. There's I think a little bit of that, but I also think that some of the undoubtedly, because I've noticed, coming across young lesbians on social media like Twitter and Facebook, and sometimes they come to my channel, and a lot of them identify as non-binary, but then probably date other female non-binary identified people or whatever, pansexual non-binary, and I think a lot of it has to do with the thing I was talking about earlier about the fact that they're spoiled with female privileges and they can only be around other people who have that same mentality.
Possible.
That would just be a guess, though.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just like pondering it, like that meme of the woman with all the calculations. I'm sitting here like, I think there's something there. I think that makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, so like they both have that mentality, right? And then like, is this part of the explanation for lesbians beating the shit out of each other?
Well, that's a generalization, but a true generalization. I heard the explanation that the reason why violence is more prevalent in lesbian relationships is because men are more aware of the consequences of violence. That's why they tend not to use it, especially against a woman. But women don't have these restrictions because nobody ever told them not to be violent.
Oh, that's interesting. I think there's something to that. There's I used to spend the summers in Provincetown, and Memorial Day weekend is called Baby Dyke weekend, and it's when all the college age lesbians come up, and it is so. I loved it because it was so hilarious because all those old queens would hide and lock their door for 3 days because it was all these like lesbians like rolling kegs down the street and getting in fights and breaking shit. And,
wow.
Yeah, there's a definite difference between the two. But yeah, it's maybe that's a some kind of a metaphor for society, that it is the strength of the man that keeps it together and keeps people from being hysterical.
Yeah. And the thing is, I also think that men usually learn as kids to deal with their aggression because through rough and tumble play, a lot of girls don't learn that, so they don't really learn when to stop.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
Anybody else?
Anyone?
It's kind of rare when we just like get to the bottom of something. It's like, where do you go?
I wonder, Phil, do you miss the porn industry at all, or were you really relieved to get out of it?
Oh, that's a very good question. So, as I said, it was an absolute pleasure working with Raging Stallion, but I had to. They couldn't use me as much as they used me before because Obama implemented a new law that made it much harder for foreigners to work in America. And so the company said it's just too dangerous and too risky to hire somebody from outside because they could get penalties and stuff like that. So they couldn't use me as much as they wanted to. And also the porn industry changed so much because of the online presence of porn. So big companies could not make the same amount of money for porn movies because people would just watch scenes on the internet. And the great thing about the movies that I predominantly was involved with was they had stories, they had a lot of B-roll. B-roll is that's how you call the non-sex scenes, and that was always my favorite part. But they couldn't afford to focus on that as much as before, and it changed more into doing sex scenes, and I wasn't very interested in that.
I remember I profiled Diane Hansen once for Out Magazine, who was a former editor-in-chief of Jugs. And then she produced. Now she works at. I don't know if she's still there, but at the time she worked for Taschen Books and did all their sex books. So she did the big Tom Quinlan's book and all that. She was an incredible woman. I loved her, but she was saying how she was sort of talking about the evolution of porn as being, especially in the 1970s, as very fun and cheerful and joyful and lighthearted. You had movies like Deep Throat, where the whole premise is what was it? She
has like a clitoris in the bottom of her throat. So
right. So it was all
that was the movie that one Democrat said he took his mom to.
Oh God, yeah. But then she said, it's evolved to this place where it's no longer has that like frivolity. Like sex was playful and funny, and now it's gone to a place where it's just I'm trying to kill you with my dick.
Yeah.
And very aggressive.
It went from comedy to slasher.
Yeah, exactly. But I wonder if I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. But there's a whole lot of things to say about that. And I keep mentioning the Proud Boys, but that's one of the things they talk about is how destructive online porn is for men. For I guess straight.
I agree. I had like a couple of years ago, and it's still slightly ongoing. I had problems with erectile dysfunction, not like majorly, but that was down to porn, not addiction, but I was watching too much porn, and my whole sexuality was focused on porn because I live in the middle of nowhere. I didn't have a relationship or anything, so the only thing that I would do is watch porn and jerk off. And after a while, I noticed that it got harder and harder for me to get harder and harder in human interactions, especially with women. And then I stopped. And then I stopped watching porn, and I could immediately notice the difference.
That's the I wonder if there's something. I wonder if that tells us about the brain, because that's a huge thing with people who watch tons of porn. They either have too high expectations when it comes to the real thing, or they can't get hard. And maybe that harkens back to like what you're saying with the longer you spend time having exclusively gay sex, the more impossible it is for you to do anything else, i.e. be with a woman.
Yeah.
No, it's a thing. It's a thing. I heard Roosh talking about this also, where he's talked to all kinds of people who call in for like different like advice or whatever. And like that's a reoccurring theme is like people who watch a lot of porn, it affects the brain and it stimulates the brain in certain ways. And it's, if you think about the way like actual sex works in practice, the way that sex works, especially, if it's changed, the way you say it is, where it's mostly these just like clips in these scenes. And most people, I think they just like find like the 20, 30 seconds that they like the most and just kind of loop through that. Like they're not looking at like a realistic like sexual thing. They're just kind of like taking like the most condensed, like sweetest, most high fructose part of it, and then that's what their brain gets wired to needing in order to get off, basically. So I think it all makes perfect sense.
Right. It's like any kind of addiction.
It's candy.
Well, I think
Snickers
it's also.
bars.
I think it also is similar to how you train a dog. I think if you train a dog with treats, for example, after a while you don't need the treats anymore, and he will just react to whatever you train him for. And I think that's what we do with our brain if we watch porn. As soon as we see the screen in front of us, that is where our sexual stimulus comes from. So if we don't have that screen in front of us, and if we don't have the same patterns, then we just don't get aroused because we trained our penis to react to that.
So what's going on? I don't know too much about this. I just see the headlines, but I feel like the three of you do. What's going on with this porn ban in the UK? I think they were going to do. You had to have a register to watch porn, and now is there about to be a ban on porn?
That's right. You got to go down to the government office. You got to tell them what you're going to watch. They're going to give you an official document. It's like, okay, you get midgets this week, and next week it's oh, you got a license for that. And then soon, this was my favorite thing BFM said with all of like the gun and weapons bans. Like soon he says everyone's gonna have to wear like those little mittens that babies wear so they don't scratch their faces.
No, but is it what's going on with it? You guys have seen these headlines, right? The UK is banning porn or banning the production of porn there, or what?
I think I think the only thing they can do is a restriction, or like that you have to sign up for porn you pay for. So I think they can't do it for free porn. That's what I heard, but I could be completely wrong. Obviously, I'm opposed to that because just like Sargon and all the other guys, I'm for free and free access to things. On the other hand, I think it might be positive for people. I mean, I wouldn't mind if the whole porn industry would completely collapse, because I think that it would be people if we would stop watching porn, at least the amount of porn that we watch at the moment. So I'm not in favor of it, but sometimes good can come out of really shitty ideas.
But I have a conspiracy theory.
Please.
So my theory is with what they're ramping up towards is as much of a ban as they possibly can. And what a lot of people say is, oh, well, this is never going to be a thing because you can't ever enforce that, right? But here's the thing. It's just like with like these free speech platforms, or not free speech, these social media platforms of like Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and everything, where they have these really, really wide and really kind of vague standards. And then they go through and they selectively enforce it. And it becomes a really difficult task to try to look through everybody who's getting banned and getting it enforced upon them and then stitch together a narrative that says you're targeting people for their political beliefs, right? And then that just can get discounted as a conspiracy theory, no matter how much evidence there is to prove it. And I think what this is ramping up towards is another way to censor people whose politics that the government doesn't like, and they get to do it while also kink shaming them.
I think I don't know. There's it could be. I think it's more has to do with. I'm surprised that an authoritarian left-wing government like the UK would want to limit porn access, because it's almost like if you look at many of the great dystopian novels about authoritarian governments all sort of talk about sex, and then many of them, like Brave New World is one of them, that the ruling party loves sexual degeneracy and all this because it keeps people detached from one another and not having strong emotional connections, if they're just allowed to fuck all the time and watch all this porn and what have you.
But don't they control it? Isn't it like within a certain setting where they have to have that sex?
I think in Brave New World, I'm getting there's a novel called We that was the first book about this that inspired Brave New World and 1984. And in that book, it was something like you could apply for this card that meant you could have sex with anyone you wanted. You just had to show it to them and they had to have sex with you. But I think Brave New World took this more. It's been so long since I read it, but I believe it took this approach more of that it was condoned by the government and celebrated that like just sort of wild sexual degeneracy. Well, whatever it was, however the government ran the system, the intention was if you have people who are just out having meaningless sex with one another and have this addictive relationship to sexuality, it keeps them weak-willed. And exactly what we were saying before, if you have a strong spiritual connection with another person and want to rate that makes you want to provide and raise a family, it's a big challenge to the state.
Well, I think that our society, the feminist agenda in society, I think that they accidentally push men into a direction, into the exact opposite direction that they want them in, to be honest. I think, for example, the more they will ban porn, the stronger men will become again. And I see it in our community here where I live, like more and more guys drop out of school, for example. So they don't go to college, they don't educate themselves. Do you know what they do? They go into like really rough professions. And actually, they make men stronger and stronger again. Less educated, but more stronger and more dangerous. So I at one point, we're going to end up with a lot of really rough, proper men. Not saying that I'm in favor of that or against it, but I think that's what's going to happen.
I'm in favor of that.
I think that one of the weird things that is going on is that we live in a society that is controlled not by what would be best for women, which is what they kind of think, but it's more like what feminist women have decided would be best for women in terms of ordering the men around. And they're so clueless. Like, they don't know the first thing about men. They don't even know anything about women. They see the world in a completely from the ground up delusional way. The idea that men live to oppress women and not serve women is like, okay, if you see the world that way, you are screwed. You cannot handle any question about social issues if that's how messed up in the head you are. And so then they start, coming up with these little just mind-reading conspiracy theories like sexual violence comes from porn. That's what it is. And it's just like, how would you know that? Like, well, I'm a woman. I know men better than men do. How do you know that? Well, because I am oppressed by men, and the oppressed has to learn about the oppressors. We have to know everything about them for our daily survival. Blah 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 blah. And that rhetoric is all there. And then so they're so lost, so incredibly confused, but also very well defended, like to stay in that position. So when they start ordering men around, they don't get what they would really want. They don't even really get what they think they want.
Yeah,
and it makes sense that they're totally clueless. This was something that Camille Paglia had pointed out. Is she's like, how come you can get these like advanced degrees in women's studies and you're not even required to have a biology course?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, they're trying to get rid of biology, in fact.
Yeah, but you'd think that if you're trying to like undo that as a concept, you'd want that knowledge. But their kind of emotional instinct is to like look away. But the interesting thing is feminism needs patriarchy more than any other ideology. Feminism needs patriarchy to be strong and robust more than traditionalism does, more than any religion does.
Oh, absolutely.
Without patriarchy, feminism is nothing.
Okay, but you mean because it wouldn't have anything to
oppose? It's purely based on opposition and slandering. And if men are weak and downtrodden, they have nothing to fight.
But I feel like they don't create patriarchy. They just start imagining it where it doesn't exist.
Well, are they not creating patriarchy? Because I mean, obviously, like feminism gives the state more and more rights over our private lives. And while if the countries are still predominantly ruled by men, even if that's not the case, then they actually hand more and more rights over to a potential patriarchy, depending on who's the ruler of the country.
But that never actually happens because men live to serve women, especially in a feminist society. The only reason
that is very true.
The only reason that there aren't more women in government is A, it's really hard to be a politician, and B, why would they? They already have all the privileges.
Absolutely.
Well, it's like nothing's really changed. They just moved a lot of labels around because power always kind of shifts around. And it's always been the case that throughout all of history, patriarchy has been a consolidated power at the top. So then what they're doing is just, it's the same movement of powers where there's just a different group of people in that consolidated power at the top. And their rhetoric just changed.
But what they don't understand too is men enjoy providing for women. Men don't have a problem with it.
I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, well, we don't, but I'm talking about normal people, not degenerate homosexuals, but normal men. They don't.
Yeah, that's why like the thought audit happens. I'm like, good.
Well, yeah, but not not through the welfare state, which is how it works out now. But on the family unit level, or yeah.
We talked about MGTOW earlier on, and I have to say, I mean, obviously I can completely understand MGTOW, but on the other hand, I'm completely against MGTOW because I think it's not the way forward for a healthy society. Again, I can completely understand where they come from, and I don't shame anybody who does that, who goes MGTOW, but I really wish that society would give man better tools to find partners that they can trust. And I wish that our system was built in a way that men don't have to fear women and their power over them.
Yeah. I mean, our system is basically, it's set up a big trap for men, and all a woman has to do is press the button. And then it's
well, and also, even if you were to fix everything, the precedent has been set that the government can retroactively change all of these things. So even if we were to kind of make some changes that would like kind of appease MGTOW and kind of give men some protection, there's still no guarantee. So the system, there is a huge, really fundamental problem. And I think the only way to really solve it is to look beyond the political. It has to be very deep. We have to actually question gynocentrism, which is the one thing that most people don't really want to name. But I'm so individualist that
you can't. I don't think that you can, and maybe you shouldn't get rid of gynocentrism, because to be honest, I think if you take away man's focus on women, society will collapse.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I think
I'm very sorry
to
say that.
Somewhere else.
I'm very sorry to say that.
Glorious.
Pardon? Sorry, say
I
again.
think we'll see something glorious if we, in the vacuum of that, because men always find ways to get that purpose. And I'm not saying that it means that like men don't have to have anything to do with women, but there's just inordinate amount of value placed on it. And I think that the real danger is that women would have to provide for themselves, would have to kind of defend and protect themselves to a larger degree. And the divide is between people who believe women are capable of that and people who think that they're not. There are people in MGTOW who would hear what I have to say and say, like, you're a monster, like what you're advocating is going to lead to all the women dying. And I say, like, no, like I really think that society's reached the point where women have the tools capable. They just they need to be pushed into the deep end a little bit, and they need to have a sink or swim moment.
I don't know. Are you? But that's not. I mean, I would disagree just because I don't think they are capable. I think they would all die because
exactly. I agree. They would all die.
Evolution,
because
our species evolved.
Our whole society is run by man. There wouldn't be any streets, there wouldn't be any houses, there wouldn't be any electricity without man.
It's not run. It's labored.
Yes, yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're completely.
Well, it was built and now maintained. Maybe
but women have always been able to rely on men, and also they've never had these tools that allow us to create these things that close the gap between the sexual dimorphic need for like the strength of men. Like we already have these inventions made. We already have these tools that let them kind of create things. It's just a matter of like of basically having, I guess there's a lot of things involved with it, but that's kind of the basic thing is that I think that we've technologically reached a point where like women can pull more of their own weight to justify this more egalitarian society.
I think they would die. I think
oh my God, oh no.
I do.
I think they would die. And to be honest, I think that our society, as I said before, I think if it wasn't for men being stupid and serving women, our society would collapse. And I think the only thing that can bring things back into balance is potentially a collapse of society, because as soon as society collapses, women will need men and they will have to appreciate men again, because without them, they would die. I'm not saying I'm looking forward to that, but that would potentially be the only way for the balance to be brought back.
Right.
Well,
If every man disappeared from Earth tomorrow, society would collapse and every woman would die.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, sure. We're gonna make it like a button situation. I concede that much.
I don't think every woman would die, because there are some very capable women. There are few and far between, but there would be some women, they would be capable of surviving. But it's
The autistic lesbians.
Exactly.
Yes.
But okay,
The cream of the crop.
Spacepan always has this, or not always, but he said this at least 2 or 3 times. This alternate solution, which he calls the metaphorical pimp hand. Could you explain that concept to us?
Well, okay, so the pimp hand, the idea behind it is that men will basically assert their authority in the family and institute a patriarchy, and it'll be the anti-egalitarian solution. You know, and it's not to say that women wouldn't have protections under the law, but they wouldn't have the same rights that men would have. And most people, you know, they don't even want to entertain that. Now, personally, I would love to be able to have a stack of evidence to confront a person with that perspective and say, no, here's the evidence that shows that we can justify having an egalitarian society. But at this point, I'm not sure we have that evidence. So I think that when you guys say, you know, if we press a button and then, you know, society would collapse if we didn't have men, like, yeah, that's absolutely the case right now. But I think that there is a capacity for humans to change. I think that, of course, biology is real. Of course, there's sexual dimorphism. Of course, these differences are there, and they do matter. And there are things that men and women are always going to be, you know, trending towards. But I don't think that that discounts the idea that women can, you know, man up and then not need, you know, a patriarchal kind of system where we have this sort of authority in the family.
Wait, hold on. I think that there is something just sort of to be said there. Like when I was talking before about how women are so spoiled, we don't have egalitarianism. We don't have it at all. What we have is a system where females have been privileged so much that it vaguely looks egalitarian on paper. And that is not egalitarianism at all. That's a bunch of weak women working jobs that they don't deserve and resenting men because they don't do their job well enough and their male coworkers are better at it and, you know, maybe sometimes condescending or something. Like that seems like it's more common due to the system. And but I do think that I don't know. I don't know what I think. I don't know if I think that women have the capacity to actually excel in certain things more and more, or if they would just choose, you know, it would be the Scandinavian question or whatever, or the Scandinavian problem. I'm not really sure about that. So
well, I want to add an amendment to what I said earlier. In the button scenario, if you pushed a button, every woman on Earth were to disappear, society would also collapse, but for very different reasons. Mainly because men would no longer be motivated to keep the trains running, and they'd be free to just kill each other in the streets.
No, we would develop technology for the artificial.
No, I think
overnight, snap of a finger, that would immediately be the thing. And then the sex dolls would be amazing. Like all of that technology, we'd go all in on that crap. And women weigh us down. Like I think it would be definitely the homo state utopia. No, like, sorry, women. Like, I try to keep you. But if we press the button, I think men would find a way. Men will find a way.
No,
the traps will be out of this world. They'll make
I agree.
Look like your grandma. Like,
no, I think you're missing something deeply. I think you're missing the spirituality. I think you're missing something that man would no longer be. You're missing something about the soul, Spacepan. That man would no longer feel that motivation.
Oh, whatever.
There'd be no more.
No. I agree.
That in video games.
I think. I think that man would prevail, and I think that man would build a new world built on camaraderie and war. but I do think that they would lack purpose because they have nothing to work for, nothing to protect.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, they might find some drive, but I think they would become more and more personally nihilistic, and there'd be drug problems and guys like not caring or starting battles for no apparent reason until they all die.
And everyone become extremely fat.
Well, I don't know about that. Hey guys, we've been going on for a really, really long time, and I have some other stuff to do.
And I'm super tired.
Yeah, I want to say thank you very much to Illiterati for giving me those super chats. But hey, dude, please do figure out PayPal. I'll email you. It's really not that hard because I'm not going to be getting that money until May 21st, and I'm going to be getting a big check from YouTube on May 21st. I mean, not like huge or anything, but it's going to be great and everything because people gave me so many super chats over the last couple of streams. But I need money in the meantime is what I'm really, really working on. And so if anybody can send me money to my PayPal account, I'm in a situation where I don't have the money that I did before until mid-July. It's a very complicated situation, but it's just kind of a get me through these times thing because I don't want to go try to get a job that I'm going to have to quit immediately. I'm trying to figure out what I can do with the people that I know around me. Starting to think like, okay, maybe I could talk to a few of these people, but it's actually a very, very personally challenging time. And that's one of the reasons I haven't been making so many videos because I've been stressed out. But I also want to give people time for closing regards. So I will start with Philip.
It was a pleasure being here on the show again. It was very, very fascinating, and I'm looking forward to the next time we talk. I have to say I'm slightly unnerved by British politics at the moment, both here in Scotland and in England.
Yeah, okay.
Pardon?
No, I got it. You said
British politics.
Okay, yeah.
Because of Brexit and all of that. But on the other hand, there's some interesting stuff going on. I find it incredibly fascinating that Sargon and Count Dankula are starting to become politicians. And yeah, there's a little bit of stuff happening. Unfortunately, the fact that people like Sargon and Tommy Robinson, that they are being like deleted from Facebook and Twitter and other accounts, that is quite worrying. And I'm slightly afraid that this will lead to an uprising of the right, of a part of the right that I don't approve of. And I think that danger exists in a lot of European countries. Yep, that's what I wanted to say.
Okay, thanks. Well, very good having you on the show. It's very interesting to chat again, and maybe you can come on again sometime when maybe if you have a specific idea about something that you would like to talk about, just hit me up. And because I'm always kind of looking for guests.
Cool. Yeah.
It's always been cool talking to you. So yeah, let's go to Chadwick.
Is this like Jerry Springer's final thoughts?
Yeah.
Conversation. I thought this live stream was incredible. I was really interested to hear your story, Philip, and I hope you don't mind if I reach out to you privately. I'd like to talk to you more about things, especially about Christianity, because you sort of perked up when I mentioned that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it'd be great. Yeah, this is really lovely. I think it's such a taboo topic for gay men to talk about the things that we discuss, especially when where Philip's story is concerned. And I think it's wonderful that we had this conversation and explored these ideas. It's not it's not advocating for the elimination of gays. I think that one thing that people get so wrong about conservatives, especially the urban conservative like myself or the Trump Republican, is that we actually love color and diversity and people who are doing different things and are strange and outside of the norm and don't fit into this or that. I wouldn't ever want to live in a world where there's no transgenders, for example, because it just makes the fabric of our daily life more interesting. There are people who are like that who are out there. I think the problem comes is when it grows into authoritarianism and into doctrine, and when people start trying to tell you what you have to think and feel and say about certain people or certain groups. So I think that's what we're losing with the new left, with the sort of rise of the authoritarian left stepping into power. Is they don't appreciate the sort of simple cultural libertarianism that so many people like myself love. And you can be a Christian or a Trump supporter or conservative or whatever, and still want those things and need those things in your society. That was kind of a rant. I don't know where that came from, but that's sort of my final thoughts, I suppose. I think this is a really good live stream. I think this is thank you, Prince, for inviting me on at the last minute.
Yeah, thanks for coming, man. Spaceman.
Yeah, well, I'm always happy to be here, and I'm glad I had a chance to talk to Philip because I wasn't able to be there when you were here before. So yeah, all around just a really fun conversation we had here. My channel is Spacepan, so if anyone wants to check it out, that's where I am.
Cool.
Or I'm here.
Question: are any of you guys coming to the International Conference for Men's Issues in Chicago?
Yes, I'm flying all the way from Hong Kong, so I will be there.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
I'm most likely going to be there. I haven't actually decided for 100% certain yet, but I'm probably going to have more money then, and I really, really want to go and meet some people in person and that kind of thing. So very, very likely. Before we go,
you have to confirm soon because I have a room reserved, and I need to figure out if people want to like piggyback on that, to save on cost.
Okay, think of me as like a 75% likely.
Can
I can't do it right now.
Okay.
I'm gonna be there for sure.
Okay.
Can you guys send me the information about it? I'd love to come. Maybe we can bunk up because I ain't rich either.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll post a link in the Hangouts chat.
Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry,
cool.
Prince,
I wanted to mention myself before we go off air that I am actually, and this is a strange thing for me to say because I was not raised religious like at all. My dad was a very he was a computer scientist, and there was just no talk of spirituality or God or Jesus or anything at all with him. That's just sort of what he was like. But I've actually considered maybe going by and checking out a church just for the positive community aspect and the fact that in Seattle Christians are such better people than everyone else, I do think that that's a particular thing to Seattle, but maybe not. Maybe it's like that in a lot of other places. But I think that I know that there's annoying Christians, but in Seattle, although there's so many churches, it's the left-wing culture is so pervasive that it would be really nice to just go and meet people that are more sober, more focused on being positive and having interpreting things in a positive way and all that kind of stuff. So I've considered going just to see what I think at this point. It's not. I'm definitely not at all sold on being religious. So I just wanted to add that.
One thing that's very important about all kinds of, especially Christianity. So when it comes to homosexuality and religion, obviously a big thing is potentially the definition of sin. And it's very important to understand that, and I'll keep that quick and short. Sin in the biblical sense, the word actually, as far as I know, comes from sport, and it means that you don't hit, like for example, when you do bow and arrow, that you don't hit the middle, so that you miss the mark a little bit. It does not mean that you are a bad person or anything. It just means, maybe you can be better in life and you can strive for betterness. So sometimes when religious people talk about sin and they don't approve of certain lifestyles, that does not mean that they don't approve of the person living this lifestyle. It just means, oh, maybe you can change something about it. Just to bring that.
That was what I was starting to come to. Is what it probably is in recent years, and I just at this point for me, it's just like kind of curiosity. Like if there was like a really cool Buddhist organization that regularly met, I would very likely consider checking that out too. But
well, I don't know, Prince. Can you imagine the sort of people you'd find at a Buddhist organization in Seattle?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think you need to
I said really cool.
Like blue hair.
Last week, actually on Good Friday, and there were monkeys everywhere. There were monkeys everywhere. They were really cute. And then they surrounded me and made crazy hissing noises, and I got really scared for a little bit. In Hong Kong.
Oh.
Where I live.
Okay. Well, hey guys, I'm gonna cut this stream off. If people want to chat a little bit after, we should do that. And see you, audience, later. Thank you so much for tuning in.
I'm gonna go to bed. Good night,
everybody.
Thank you so much.